If you want your man's help with the housework, make a list. I don't want to make a list. Back and forth. And somebody wrote, does he not have eyes? And so I was like, does he not have eyes? I actually even took their language and wove it into the song. Dale, we are 5 minutes into this podcast and you're ready to make me cry already? Or my daughter told me that her friend's dad doesn't like me. And I was like, that's okay, honey. Most husbands don't like me. Now we're getting into the real nerdy stuff. So tell me if I lose you, we can always change direction.
I'm still with you.
I list all the diagnoses, because we've never really studied the female body. It's a beat drop. You match the joke with the beat drop, and the doctor's like, it's fine. And then they go in, they're like, that's the worst endometriosis I've ever seen. And they're like, yeah, I have been unemployable for 4 years. And they're like, oh, now it's in your lungs and your bowels. And you're like, oh, great. So if you had listened to me 10 years ago, I'd be in a much better space, but you didn't.
There are so many earlier signs that if you can catch so many symptoms down the line.
Well, and even you can feel like you're not crazy. Before becoming a mom, I could live as a man. I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted to, and I was invited to all spaces. But when you become a mom, you become a woman in society. You get the sideline for having children. People don't want you in their homes. You don't want to take too much space.
Hi, my name is Theo, and this is Mira Talks. Here we have conversations with women who turn personal challenges into industry breakthroughs in health, hormone wellness, and advocacy. This podcast is powered by Mira, the hormone health monitor that helps you understand your body and make confident and informed decisions about your health and future. Today, I'm speaking with Farideh. She's a Canadian singer, songwriter, and a comedian who reached millions with viral songs about motherhood and women's health. You might know her from her hit, You Are Such a Good Dad, which took her all the way to Good Morning America. Another one of her songs, The Female Body, spread globally because it did touch a nerve. It speaks to how women's health gets often dismissed and delayed. And that song was born actually from her own struggle with PCOS, which is a story that far more women resonate with, including myself, having been through a diagnosis like that. In this episode, we talk about what it actually means to live in a female body, what it means being a woman, being a mother, receiving a diagnosis, and what it means being dismissed along the way. All of this through the lens of an artist who turned her experience into truth that you can feel and you can laugh about at the same time. This is a different kind of conversation, and it's one that I know will stay with you. Farideh, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so great to be here and to hang out with you today and to just have a lovely chat. I'm excited.
And did I pronounce your name correctly? Farideh, is it?
Yeah, Farideh, depending on your accent, it's usually Farideh, but it's
Farideh.
We're always changing. I don't even say my name right. It's a Persian name, so how people would actually say it is probably different than me.
No, I'm asking you because I have the same struggle. We were just chatting before we started hitting record, right? How do I pronounce your name? Because I have the same struggle. I'm originally from Romania, so my full name goes Theodora. I am based now in the Netherlands, but my name gets always, all the time mispronounced. That's why I'm asking, okay, did I actually pronounce your name correctly? How often do you get your name mispronounced? And how often do you get to correct people?
Well, I do live in Canada, so, if you're at the doctor and they're saying names, I know it's me because they're just awkwardly looking at the paper and I'm like, that's me. All right. I do usually in public, I just say Fred so that people, restaurants and those kinds of things, just so it's easy. Like Fred, they've got it. That's the way to just avoid them having to worry.
That's so funny. So when I go to restaurants, here, Theo, nobody can really pronounce Theo, even Theo, because I thought, Theo would be easier for them, but that's a boy's name, so I don't really want to go there. So I said, I'm just going to go for short with Theo. But even when I book, for instance, restaurants, I go by Claire. Don't ask me why.
Right.
Like Claire, I just chose one random name, and then that's the booking that I always make on. It's Claire. That's the name. But have you been to those parts in the world where the name is actually originally from?
Not yet, but I do have Persian friends and stuff like that who can say my name correctly and better than me. And there is something so nice in your heart when you're like, oh, that's the way to say it. That's my real name, but I don't even have the right accent for it.
Oh, I resonate with that so much because whenever I travel to obviously Romania back home, but also to Greece, because it's my name is Greek it has Greek origins, and then whenever I go to Greece, it's such a heartwarming feeling, right? Have people you don't have to explain your name, you don't have to. You don't have to correct them. That's my name. I'm glad I can say it like my name in full. I don't have to go for shorter versions.
I usually still have to explain because they're like, you don't look Persian. And then I'm like, well, I was named after my mom's really close friend when she was growing up, and they went really full all out. They were like, Farideh, Monire. Like, they went really full on Persian.
Yeah, I hope you get to travel there one time because like it's a really nice feeling to have, to not have to explain your name. Yeah. So I came across your work a while ago, actually. I think it's like a year ago or so, because women in my community were sending me all these videos, like from the female body video, because I work in the women's health space with menstrual health, right? So my entire content revolves around hormones and PCOS and, you know, all of that jazz. And so in my inbox, there was this woman, the video. I was like, who is she? I have to check her out. So I did, and I checked your profile, and I love your work. I love how you articulate such so many experiences that we all live as women. I saw that you also have a little girl. So I wonder if your little girl is already, like, is she a fan already? Do you allow her to listen to your songs?
Well, I don't think any 10-year-old girl is like a fan of her mom. You know, they all think that they're pretty lame and, cringy and embarrassing. But, you know, she does know that I'm funny, and she is watching. You know, she's watching, she's learning. Sometimes I explain songs, even the inappropriate ones. And so it's always an opportunity for us to have a conversation. But no, she does not think I'm cool. And that's totally fine. We're like 20 years away from that.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a time when she's going to look back and she's going to be super proud of her mom and how she's raised her to be outspoken. And
Teo, we are 5 minutes into this podcast and you're ready to make me cry already? Let's... I've got farther to go.
Tell me then about those songs, the inappropriate ones, you know, like how does she react to those? Or like the ones that have a few of those very explicit words. Let's just call them that.
Okay, well, I have always just explained with like explicit words. I always say like those are adult words. So firstly, I don't have like, some families are far more stringent. But yeah, no, my daughter has a swear jar for us. So she likes to go through my videos and then say which ones are swear words, count them, and tell me that that's at least $14, Mom. And I'm like, okay. She's like, and how many times did you record this? I was like, okay, not that many. We're not going to pay that much. I have to still save for your college education. But yeah. And sometimes, you know, it's a great conversations. Like I have a song called Your Mama Used to Be a Hoe, which is about obviously that, you know, sometimes when people become mums, they're kind of painted in this, they become a caricature of themselves, that they don't have a past anymore, that they're like this saintly woman who is always of sacrifice. But like, I know who my friends used to be, you know, they're not this woman who's like, does everybody want cupcakes? They used to be like dry heaving in the back alley behind a bar. You know, there's a whole world of a woman. And so I had to like explain to my daughter, like why that was funny, you know, like, and really be like, a hoe is, but you know, like she will, like, I do know that one day she'll be raised being like, wow, my mom really like wasn't afraid to talk about things from a young age, you know?
Yeah. And looking back again, like, I think she's going to just be so much more appreciative as like for sure compared to how she is now, like at 10 years old, she doesn't fully understand the full picture. But tell me, why do you write these songs? What's the reason behind it all?
I've always been a songwriter, and I had a career as a musician for basically 20 years. It was really hard to hold my dream of being a musician and a mother at the same time. And so I thought my career was over. And so I love to articulate the feelings of other people. That is like my talent, my dream, my ability. And I started making content as a way to find out what my next career path was, because I was like, well, I know how to entertain audiences. That's what I need to do. And I did it for about 2 years before anything happened. It's when I wrote You Are Such a Good Dad. And so I think that the reason I write these songs is because it's similar to being a songwriter. It's just really finding language for other people, for the emotions that they have, that they don't know that they have. Moms are so busy. Women are so busy. There isn't always language for our experiences. And when we articulate them, you know, that allows us to communicate better, or also just feel our feelings better. Or some of these songs, you know, they're all also about like, maybe I'm experiencing things, but there's actually, all my friends or everybody I know is experiencing the same injustice. Like not having people research your health or having your partner think that they're doing 50%, but they're not even clocking 10. This is a common systematic pattern that everybody experiences, not just, but we live our own lives and we think it's just us, right? So I love writing those feelings. And also, like, not all my songs are about me. They draw a lot on my personal experience, but sometimes I'm like, you know what? Everybody seems to hate laundry. I don't have the same feelings about laundry, but I can write a song for other people because, I can communicate laundry rage, It doesn't have to be my personal feelings, but, because it's like the songs are of service. Like when I was younger, my songs needed to serve me. They needed to be my therapy. And now they're really about other people and just giving language to women and writing songs for them and their experiences so that they can watch them and listen to them and be like, oh my goodness, that is so me.
Yeah, that's the reaction that I think most of the songs that you write and the songs that I heard in your videos, that's the reaction that I also resonate with. That's what I say. Oh my gosh, that's so me. I find myself in so many of your sketches. But you mentioned this one song, You're Such a Good Dad, right? Mm-hmm. Was that the first song that went viral for you on socials?
Yeah, that's right. That's the one that I was like, oh, my new career path is the same career path, just with like a slight differentiation, just to be humor.
So, because now you're at a place where, like, I think it's a few years later, right? Where you have now, I think it's around 1 million followers across platforms, like somewhere around that number, right? Yeah. So that's impressive work. Congratulations. Also coming from someone who, like, I am also building a community myself online. I know that's hard work. It's not something that just happens overnight, and it's hard work not only from the moment you go viral, but there's so much work that happens before that overnight success that we all see, right?
Right.
So now having such a large audience, how are you using the stories? Like the stories that you hear from the women or just people in general. By the way, is your audience mostly women or do you have a mix?
No, they're like 96, 98%. I mean, I love those 2 to 4% of men. Mm-hmm. They're welcome. Or my daughter told me that her friend's dad doesn't like me. And I was like, that's okay, honey. Most husbands don't like me.
Probably some of those, like the 2%, probably they're the husbands or the partners of the women that you run, like they're already part of your audience, like the big fans sending these videos to their spouses.
There's many men who have a really great sense of humor and can like laugh at themselves. And like those are the ones just like my husband, he can laugh at himself and we can laugh at the pattern together. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would just remember now that I recently posted a video like that reached some dark corners on the internet, because you intend it to be like a joke, but then they end up, I don't know how the algorithm picks up on them. And then they end up in this like, whoa, a roller coaster of like negative comments and like, that was not the intention behind that video. But now I wonder, with such a large audience, like how do you use the stories that you hear from the women in your community? How do you use them to feed the songs that you're writing, the narratives that you're choosing for your songs?
I use them in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's just a song idea. Like I sometimes will post, be like, what haven't I written about? And for instance, I had a follower message and be like, you know what you should write about is male fridge blindness. And I was like, that's an amazing song title. I will absolutely. So there's that. Or sometimes I'll be like, I just did a Christmas series and I thought, what's the worst gift you've ever received from your husband? And then they all tell me, and it's all vacuum. So now I have a song called "My Husband Always Buys Me a Vacuum." So sometimes it can also be, so it can be song titles, it could be song ideas, and even sometimes it's the language. I have this song called "Make a List." There's a very popular marital advice that like if you want help, you should just make a list. I ask my audience like, when people say that, what do you think or what do you say? So I actually wrote it with them, right? So I was like, if you want your man's help with the housework, make a list. I don't want to make a list. Back and forth. And somebody wrote, does he not have eyes? And so I was like, does he not have eyes? Like I actually even took their language and wove it into the song, which is great because, I'm a musician. My comedic career is very, very new. I'm not that funny. Most of my followers are far funnier than me. So I will just use them for my songs.
But that's community building practice at its best, what you're doing, right? That's what you want to do when you're building an engaged community. You want to take their input and then let that shape your work. Okay, so now you have some inspiration for your future songs. But what's the story then behind your most viral, like the first viral song?
I was doing comedic content and it wasn't doing very well. So I thought, maybe I just need to take a comedy class. Maybe I'm just not that good yet. And I knew my comedic content did okay, but probably needed to be better. And I was like, well, I took all sorts of courses on how to write songs and be a better songwriter. I'll just take a course on comedy. And in that class, I realized two things. Number one, I was so committed to this idea that my music career was over that I was leaving it at the door. Like I wasn't integrating it at all. And in my comedy class, I saw that people who did really well were bringing in their gifts. They were bringing in their acting, their ability to do impressions, their stories about their parents. And I was just like, that thing over there. So I was like, oh, okay, so I should probably write musical songs. And, actually as a musician, you're really told never to write songs about motherhood because it makes you look old and uncool. Music is incredibly youth-oriented. If you think about it, how many songs are written about your experience as a mother? Like, there's less than 5, I'm sure you can think of, right? Like, we are not ever supposed to speak about this experience because that's only what happens to old women, especially musicians, because then you can't be sexualized. So I integrated that belief and that rule into my practice as a very young woman because I wrote and they were like, actually never mention that you're a mother because that song will never do well. Do not do that, right? Entered this comedy class 20 years later. They were like, and let's talk about motherhood. And I'm like, ooh, I don't want to do that. That'll make me old and uncool. And then I was like, oh, right, we are old and uncool now. We have nothing to lose. And so I was like, okay, I should write about parenting and my actual experience. And what was exciting was I had so much to say. The writing prompt was, what's the most annoying thing about being a mom? And I was like, the most annoying thing about being a mother is how much praise my husband gets for pushing a stroller. Like, oh my God, you're so brave. I'm like, he is pushing a stroller. This is the bare minimum. I remember the first time my husband strapped a baby to him and went for a walk. And he came back and he was like, I am a god. He's like, people just approach me in public and they just are like, oh my God, my baby daddy would never do that. Yeah, so such a good dad came from that. I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to list all the things I do. And then the bare minimum that he does, the applause he gets. And the great thing was he wasn't surprised by that conversation or this song. He was like, yeah, that is our lived experience.
And what was the overall reaction that you got from your audience?
I certainly was surprised. They were like, wow, this is so me. This is my exact experience, right? There were so many people sharing, being laughing, being like, wow, this is my experience. So that was really nice to be. I mean, I knew it was all of me, my experience and all my friends' experience, but then to see it out in the world and to see so many folks really resonate was just a joy.
I wonder now, because of course you have a large community and we briefly touched upon this before, that split between the positive comments and then the negative comments, right?
Yeah.
Is it something that you see as well? I'm asking, from a creator to another creator. How do you deal with the negativity? Because with the positivity, yes, sure, we love to see that our content really hits the right spots, right? And we help other people resonate and we help them be seen and heard. But we also have on the other side of the spectrum where there's a lot of negativity, right? You provoke people, you poke them, you trigger them. Has that happened to you? Did you have that experience as well? And what did you do about it?
Oh, I get lots of negative. I get lots of negative comments, hate comments, troll comments, and they're kind of a variety. Like you said, there's people who just hate me. You know what I mean? They're just they don't like anything I do. They they make comments about my appearance, about my weight, about my songs, about my motherhood. I should just divorce my husband. There's many things. But I think what you're saying too is so there's people who are just triggered by what I'm saying. Some people think I'm really hard on men. And I think, am I being hard on men or just not centering their experience? Currently, right now, of course, we live in a world where a male experience is actually very centered. So when you don't really talk about, there are people, obviously they're just a small portion, but they just happen to be online. But then, you know what, there are people like you're saying, Teo, that are triggered because I realize that sometimes I'm talking about something that actually, I'm talking about my demo, which would be a mother. It gets really upset by my video, but doesn't know why. And so she thinks I did it, right? So she's like, that made me so mad. But it was oh, I just brought up something that's been happening in your life. And it wasn't my actual song that made you mad. It was the experience. But because maybe they're not as articulate about their feelings, they didn't know why they were triggered. So they just thought I did it. And how do I handle it? It gets easier and easier every day. It was harder at the beginning. I'll tell you, people will tell me, this chunky blonde, or I'm fat, or they'll like call me names or say I'm a terrible mother. But the worst, most offensive, most hurtful comment is I'm bored, or like, this isn't a very good song. I'm like, how could this is so upsetting. I'm going to need a day to recover. Like, as far as like, because I am not 20, and that is a real bounty. I already like was chewed up and spit out by a music industry that I was never good enough for. I already like lived as a woman in this world and had a horrible mental landscape that was full of self-criticism. And I'm in my 40s and I'm happily married. I have a great relationship with my kid, and I have a great relationship with my mom. If my mom thinks I'm doing great and that I'm a good mom and my husband does, that's great. I have made peace with my physical appearance. I'm not a model. That's not my job. My job is to entertain. And the older I get and the fatter I get, I'll just be funnier as I get older. So looks works out. So that's how I handle it. It just gets easier with every day. And you know what? Sometimes if I am noticing I'm feeling really sensitive, that just tells me I'm actually really overtired or overextending myself. And I just need to take some time. So those are my thoughts to help you through. Because I know it can be really hard. But there's so many of them after a while. You just can't take them in.
But it also says so much, your own reaction says so much about your own self-confidence, right? Because if there was the same way that you are triggering your audience with what you're saying in your songs, the same way the other comments could trigger you, right? If you allow them. It's not necessarily their words, it's how their words land for you. So if there's something that you even slightly resonate with in their negative comments, and if you allow that to trigger you, you could have a very negative reaction to it.
That's right.
I wonder, like, practically speaking, I'm very selfish with this conversation. I feel like I'm asking the questions that I want to hear your answers.
Love it.
Do you get to delete some of these negative comments? Or do you choose to leave them there for full transparency? Or like, where's the line? Because I feel like there's also a line, right? Like if it gets too personal, like I also take action sometimes, and I would just remove some comments, or I would just block some comments if I feel like the sentiment changes in the entire conversation in the comments section. But I wonder, how do you practically deal with it?
I think that line always moves and is always changing. Earlier, I deleted a lot more because I thought I really want my place to be a positive space. And I kind of took the belief of like, you wouldn't let someone come into your house and poop on your floor. So I don't let somebody come in and poop in my comment section. However, I have changed that now to be like, let things be more transparent there, because I don't take it in. It helps people know what the full spectrum of reaction is. And honestly, it's a smart business move to let my comments do whatever they wish. The line right now, and it is, like I said, it always changes. Like it changed earlier in the year, where before I would delete just really toxic comment, is when the comments are harmful to others. So if the comments make a comment about my body, I don't care. So they can stay up. And you know what? There's many of my followers will be like, that's not very nice. That's not really, like, and then they chime in and are very kind, but like it doesn't come in to my body. For a song like Used to Be a Hoe, there would be a lot of like, I hope this is a word I can say and we can change it if not. There would be a lot of slut shaming in my comment section. And a lot of those I deleted because I think I'm not okay with other people. Like my own background I was not promiscuous at all. It's the greatest regret of my life, Teo. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people I was like, I've been happily married for 15 years. That's never going to come back. And I really wish when I was young and hot, I really had grabbed that guy. But I didn't want my place to be for women who were promiscuous to be shamed. Those are the comments I deleted. And so when that happens, but otherwise, let her buck, as they say in Canada.
Yeah. And let the conversation flourish. I mean, to your point, there is also it's a smart business move, right? Conversation helps the algorithm. And as long as the sentiment is overall positive, there is no harm. And as long as, to your point, people don't harm others with the comments, because I think like that's the line. That's also the line that is very important for me as well. Can we go back a little bit to that first viral song? Yeah. Your first viral song. What came after it? Like, what inspired you to come with the next song? Was it something particular in your comments, or was it maybe you have a story about a certain message, something that you remember that sparked your ideas for the next song?
Well, the great thing was that I had been really searching for my career, right? I was like, what is my next step? And I had some viral videos, but I was, one of them was like a series of like doing revenge on my brother. But I was like, I can't build a career off of doing revenge upon my brother, which as fun as it is, it's not, we have fun and I can buy him a cake, or steal a cake from his house or things, but I can't build a career off of it. So then when that happened and it went viral, I was like, oh, this is the same career. I know how to write songs. Like, it was hard to come up with comedic ideas, but like, I know how to write songs and I have all these thoughts about motherhood or being introverted. So I think that and it was, like right around this time of year. So then I was like, okay, the magic of the season is your mom. Like this idea of we've always been wondering, at least I did my whole life being like, why does the air feel different in December? My family wasn't one that like celebrated Christmas a lot. So there wasn't a connection between motherhood and Christmas that perhaps were there for other people. But I was like, oh, this is mothers. Like, cause it's not just like your mom, it's also your aunt and your grandma and the family dinners and, gifts for teachers and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, the magic of the season is your mom. I wrote that really quickly. Like, I just started being like, okay, I'm going to write songs. It doesn't matter if they're good, if they're bad. I'm just going to write about people's experiences and what it's like to be a mom. And I'm just going to go as fast as I can. I feel like sometimes being online is like fishing. You just keep, not that I'm a fishing expert, but I am from Canada. So, you cast your reel and then sometimes you're like, got one. Okay. Run as fast as you can. Just run as fast as you can. And I feel like I was really blessed by the universe at that point. Just like the songs kept flowing and I was like, all right, let's keep going. This isn't usually how it is.
She's on the ride. And then when did the other song, The Female Body, when did one come out? Was it right after?
No. They're quite far. I probably wrote 35 songs between those two.
Oh, wow. Because I think that was the following most viral song. Or I don't know if I'm biased here, but that was all over my feed for like a few weeks in a row.
That was a year and a half later. Yeah, it's actually like, we've never really studied the body. The Female Body is my biggest song. It outshone Such a Good Dad for sure. But the song is about how like I list all these diagnoses and how we like don't have any cure for them because we've never really studied the female body. I was really excited about that because my background is really like in folk singer-songwriter music, and my like lifelong friend and my producer Jordan, he has like a lot of pop background. And so we were really experimenting with different genres and the power of different genres. For instance, pop music has a lot of like, poof, which, like the beat drop. And that really mirrors a joke. That is a lot of like, and then this happened and this and this turn, poof, right? So they rhythmically match each other. So I thought this was really a thing. Now we're getting into the real nerdy stuff. So tell me if I lose you, we can always change direction.
I'm still with you.
But I felt like that was the same thing. I list all the diagnoses, because we've never really studied the female body. It's a beat drop. You match the joke with the beat drop. And it was so fun creatively to match those. And as far as like what it is about, I mean, I think we all have friends who have, stage 4 endometriosis, and it's, the doctor's like, it's fine. And then they go in, they're like, that's the worst endometriosis I've ever seen. And they're like, yeah, I have been unemployable for 4 years. And they're like, oh, now it's in your lungs and your bowels. And you're like, oh, great. So if you had listened to me 10 years ago, I'd be in a much better space, but you didn't. Like, and how you have this helpless rage, whether it's for yourself or for your friend, being like, this is an injustice. And one of the things as far as, another fear I always have is that people will think I'm being hard on doctors. And I think that doctors are really trying. But at the same time, we're all swimming in a sea of misogyny. And so that means that we don't know perhaps how we're interacting with that by thinking that a woman's inventing it or her anxiety or things like that. But also there's just no research. You can't really give your patients, if you don't have the research, what kind of service can you give your patients? Like you can't. Like you're like, well, migraines, destroyed your life. Well, there's no treatment. I mean, we've tried a few things. Did Botox work? No. Okay. Well, good luck. Try some coffee. If it wasn't affecting women so heavily, it would be different, right? That's just the reality.
And you mentioned that friend. Is that a real story in your someone close to you?
Oh,
a friend or like a generic story?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more? if that's okay. Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it was somebody I really love who, that was her journey. And she had endometriosis and she really wanted to get an operation to have it removed. And people kept saying, it should be fine. It should be fine. It should be fine. And then she just really kept coming back and they're like, fine, I'll do an operation. Then he went in there and was like, oh, yeah, that is the worst endometriosis I've ever seen. And so, of course, then she had to go on and have a full hysterectomy, by the age of 30. And if she had been listened to earlier, it likely wouldn't have been so intense. Because I'm not an expert, I don't know if it would change her prognosis. That's what I remember. But at the same time, there is a real challenge with going through a diagnosis and then being told, or going through an experience in your body that and being told that is not true is just as painful as the surgery itself, or the treatment itself.
100%.
Totally, you're crazy, or it's your thoughts that are making this happen, or, like it's totally fine. It's you. And you're like, no. I think I'm at a level 8 pain daily. I cannot work. And then just being like, no, I think you're making it up and you're making a big deal of it. That is, as I said, it's just as painful as the experience itself.
It's really crazy what's happening because, to your point, we live in a world that is just obsessed with rational explanations. Like, we need the data, we need the science to accept something as being rational, right? But we all know that research is massively lacking data points in women's field. Like we just introduced women in clinical trials in 1993. So even today, we don't have enough data points to really fully understand how hormones interact with one another. We don't fully understand all the feedback loops. And we know that hormones impact all the systems in the body. And hormones are one of the main reasons why women were excluded from all these clinical trials, because they are too difficult. They interact with everything in the body. So there is little to no control over all these interactions. On one hand, right, you need the data to accept something as being rational, and we completely dismissed all the lived experiences of women. But then the moment we have women collectively experiencing certain symptoms and complaining about certain symptoms, we invalidate them because we don't have the data to support them. So the question is, what are we doing? You managed really beautifully to put words and actually to put lyrics, right, on these lived experiences that women all live collectively. And that's what you did so beautifully with this song. And as I told you, so many women were sending me this video of you, or they would send me videos of other women like dancing or, using the song in the background. And it was beautiful to see how we all came together as women in the online space, sharing this, and you created a shared experience through your music, through your art. So really appreciate all the work that you do, because it felt like an online gathering. Like you called us all to come together to talk openly and just to, connect over some of the pains we all shared. And I know that there is also a little bit of that personal component to it, right? You were telling me a little bit of your PCOS history, right? Because PCOS is also part, at least it's mentioned in the song, right? There is endometriosis, PCOS, right? And tell me a little bit about your experience with PCOS. What happened there? What's the background?
Yeah, so I was in my late 20s and I gained 40 pounds in 6 weeks. And I was already on a very stringent diet of no dairy, situation where my body wasn't moving weight. So I was getting very extreme with being I'm going to count my calories and I'm not going to have dairy or sugar or flour or blah, 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 blah. And then I gained 40 pounds. And I kept looking for understanding of what was going on. And I was just met with a lot of fat phobia that obviously I'm not working out enough or not eating the right thing. And I tried every doctor, every blood test, and nobody even suggested that this could be part of the experience. And I was like, my body's out of control. I just better make peace with this body now because I don't know when it's going to stop gaining weight. It's just going. And what's crazy is nobody was like, that's really scary. Why is your body doing that? No, they were just clearly you've been eating the donuts over and over, hundreds of donuts a day. I was like, I am a late 20s woman. I am obsessed with my weight. Like most women of the 90s are. It did taper off, but I didn't find that my body was doing anything it was supposed to do. About a decade later, I found what PCOS does. And I had already had facial hair and fertility issues. And I was like, oh, and also through social media, other people express, I gained 60 pounds in 3 months. I was like, oh, And also this concept of like calories in, calories out, that doesn't work for me. What happens is if I stress myself out, that's like cortisol or insulin, like those kinds of things, that all makes sense to me. And so once I read that, I was like, oh, this is me. This is my experience. And I was sharing with you, it's like, I don't have a doctor who's like, that's just not something they even say here. Like, can't be like, I mean, other than I can be like, I think I have PCOS, and my doctor would be like, okay, cool. That makes sense. And I have a lovely doctor. I had to change doctors to find a doctor who would believe me, who would let me try things, who would let me check my hormones, I went to the Chinese medicine person, the naturopath, the acupuncturist. But so I live without, I know that seems like the most rational explanation to me of what my experiences is, because based on my, experience and based on like what I've read, this is the only thing that kind of makes sense. I'm sure we'll know more with time, but this is the question, Teo. I was like, do you wait for somebody else to confirm your lived experience? Because you could be waiting another 20, 30 years.
Exactly. Or you could receive, what also happens is you could receive a diagnosis one day, and then we have new research that says exactly the opposite to your very first diagnosis, and then the entire environment changes, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, let's not forget that it's not so long ago since we were just doing all these bloodletting. So we would let people bleed out, right? Like just to cure certain diseases. And it's not so long ago when we were doing hysterectomies just because we experienced PMS. Like I think it's like around 200 years ago where we would still name every single condition connected to the uterus as hysteria. We actually believe that the uterus was moving in the body, and that was what's causing all the pain and all these mood swings and disturbances in the body. So things have evolved since, but science is unfortunately not moving as fast as we deserved. And it's for a fair reason, because research takes time. But at the same point, we should not be dismissing the lived experiences of women. And to your point, like PCOS, I received a PCOS diagnosis, but that was for me, I think it was longer than 10 years ago. Yeah, way longer, like maybe 15 years ago. And back then you didn't have that much information online. Like my personal research was not as in-depth as you could do it nowadays, right? Because you have so much more information, right? And you could do all of these self-analyses, and you could say probably you're having a condition or the other, which is both positive and negative. Because also with so much information out there, right? Also labeling yourself with a certain condition, I don't think that's doing you good, because you then think that you just associate with a certain group. Like you sort of blame everything on that condition that you identify yourself with. We all know that at the very core of it all, it's still your lifestyle and the daily choices that you make. We can do so much good with small little changes in our lifestyle, everything from our diet, the way that we handle stress, the way that we regulate our nervous system. For everyone who listens to this, so PCOS stands for polycystic ovary syndrome. So it's a collection of symptoms. It's not necessarily connected to the ovary. So the ovary is not the root cause of it all. I don't know if you know this, but actually PCOS is insulin resistance. Have you came across this in your research? Like in your independent research? So it's not connected to diabetes. It is insulin resistance, right? So the way that it works, we have insulin, that is this hormone in the body that moves glucose from the bloodstream to the cells so the body can use it for energy. When we have too much glucose in the body, then the pancreas, because there is some kind of inflammation around the cells, and the cells cannot receive the glucose, the pancreas then produces way too much insulin. So we have way too much insulin in the bloodstream. The insulin cannot efficiently move the glucose to all the cells. And so we are left with these high amounts of glucose and insulin. And these high levels of insulin, they move throughout the body, and they cause conditions and diseases in many, many parts. And one part is the ovary, because it makes the ovary produce way too much testosterone. This is the male hormone, right? That gives you all of those symptoms that you said that you're experiencing. The weight gain, excess facial hair, body hair, increased aggression even. So also your moods are disturbed. So that's testosterone at play. And we have this ratio of estrogen and progesterone in a menstrual cycle that if we have it in a balanced ratio, it increases, it supports ovulation. But when we have too much testosterone, that's what blocks ovulation. So when you have an irregular ovulation, you end up having the symptom of irregular cycles. So irregular cycles, right? Like that's one of the 3 conditions that you would have to check off the list, receive like a PCOS diagnosis. So you have 3 conditions and you need to check off 2 of them. One would be irregular cycles. So that means irregular ovulation. Second would be excess androgen levels, testosterone in this case. And then third would be to do like an ultrasound and see if you have cysts on the ovaries. So even if you don't have cysts on the ovaries, you could still have the first 2 on the list, right? And you would have PCOS. So it's not the name in itself. I feel like it's misleading very much because it's not a condition where all these symptoms stem from the ovary itself. So the ovary is not the root cause. It is the metabolic dysfunction. And that's something that has lifestyle and diet at its core. And PCOS is reversible, by the way. So I used to come from very irregular cycles, excruciating pain around my period, heavy PMS symptoms, really bad. That was the story, like I was put on the pill and then I was told that all the symptoms are going to go away. It was true because all the natural hormonal activity was blocked. But then when I got off the pill, again, all the symptoms came back even worse than before. And I managed to reverse it. And you do that through diet. And we have even more, nowadays, we have peer reviews papers that say that through food and lifestyle changes, you can reverse PCOS in as little as 12 weeks. So it is possible. I see it also in my practice. Women are reversing PCOS more and more. That's reassuring. But again, it's not, because you mentioned also that you don't want to dismiss the medical system, right? It's not the doctor's fault, I feel, right? Because also doctors, they don't receive any education in nutrition or like nervous system regulation other than through pharmaceuticals, right? So then they prescribe diabetes medication to treat PCOS. Very often it happens. Patients don't receive any education on how to use food properly to balance out the sugar levels, right? How to regulate the nervous system, because that sits at the core of the hormone health. It's really a topic that I feel it deserves much more attention. And through your work, like you're doing just that. I feel like all our guests on this podcast, you all have an impact in women's health space. Like even you, like you're not a doctor, you're not a healthcare practitioner, but you make an impact in the space. And I thank you for that, because through your work, you manage not only to put words for all these lived experiences of the women going through the pain, but you're raising awareness. And that has a compounding effect over time.
Yeah. And I think it's been interesting too, as I'm like journeying through the very beginning stages of perimenopause. It's a very similar journey of being like, well, we don't really know what to do with you. And well, actually those symptoms you're experiencing, that's very much imagined. And have you tried sleeping? You're like, oh, I'm like, okay, here we are again.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
I know you have a few sketches on perimenopause as well, right?
Well, it's a similar kind of journey, right? Which is that people don't know what to do. And we are having some, like then you start going through your body is going through a change. And so then, managing your stress levels become even more important. But even things like your exercise, like what should I be exercising as a woman in my 40s now is different than in my 30s or 20s. Well, probably some of this information would have been helpful because I was already having, hormone issues earlier in my life. But so then, you can't really go to fitness experts. You have to go to very specific fitness experts that study aging women's bodies, because I have to think about cortisol levels and how it's going to upset my body even more than I did before. Because a lot of our fitness and nutritional health is A, not based on women, B, not based on aging women. But thankfully, with social media, we have so much knowledge transfer happening by researchers who are also creators, or, folks like yourself who are journeying in this space and telling us. But yeah, it's really similar, where you're like, you have all these weird conditions and then you find out, oh, itchy ears, that's perimenopause. Oh, like...
Have you heard about the phantom smell? We had Dr. Carrie Jones previously on the podcast. She's an expert in perimenopause and menopause when it comes to hormones. Wow. And she's given us so many gems. Like I haven't heard about the phantom smell. Like you just out of nowhere, you start smelling things that nobody else can smell. And nobody knows why. Like your body is sending you all of these signals. Our bodies are so intelligent, but only if we had all this information, right? Because
Right.
otherwise you wait for the irregular cycle or the hot flashes, because those are the obvious that everyone knows about, that they associated with perimenopause. But there are so many earlier signs that if you can catch so many symptoms down the line.
Well, and even you can feel like you're not crazy. The song, like we've never really studied the female body is about, like, it's just like, it's your weekly reminder whenever I do a video, it's like, you are not crazy. This is a real experience. Same thing with perimenopause. You know, it's a thousands of year old belief that women are meant to suffer for their bodies, their periods and things like that. And we still battle it today, right? And these are these insidious ways that we swim in misogyny. We see it, right? And being like, well, I can just suck it up. I'll just suck it up some more. It's like, well, actually there is some support if you seek it out and look for it and you research it and then you strong arm your doctor into into giving you what you want.
Have you had any comments or feedback from the women in your community, just beyond, of course, they resonate with your message and they feel heard and seen, but have you heard such stories where they actually took a step forward to maybe receive a diagnosis, or you opened up their eyes regarding some, I don't know, parts in their health and wellness, perimenopause? I don't know.
I think that a few ways that those songs end up being, like, as far as the health and wellness being, I have a song called Check Your Titties, which is I basically
Love that.
show you how to do a breast exam through song. And I get messages all the time about, oh my goodness, I just found a lump. Thank you. I went to the doctor. Or I found this early because of this song. Or you saved my best friend's life because of the song. I told her she'd never done one, which is baffling. It was like one of those, it wasn't I never dreamed that a song would literally save a life. I don't know if it has helped anybody with a diagnosis or making a step forward so much as just being like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. This is my experience. I mean, with some of my other songs, especially about parenting or marriage, I get lots of messages from therapists saying your song was in my practice today, or people being like, I'm taking this to my therapist. And I think that, or they send it to their husbands to try a dialogue. That's the other thing, is like a lot of, especially with the stuff that's about marriage or parenting, you're two very triggered, angry people coming at each other. And then if you can just send each other like a song that's also a laugh, sometimes that means you can build a bridge a little easier than, you try. Sometimes also especially with the division of labor in a home, that conversation and that dialogue, you advance and you're learning together over a decade. The hard part about having a child is that your marriage blows up right at the moment you need it to be the strongest, because of the default parenting and all these, like, the division of labor really becomes apparent. And so then you have to journey together, and it's very difficult to journey while you're both kind of in crisis.
Tell me more about that. I'm personally at the point, where we are talking about potentially having children. I don't have any kids yet, but I know that foundation between the married couple has to be very strong before you embark on such a journey, right? Tell me more about this song, like the one that you just mentioned. What's the name of the song?
Well, I mean, most of my songs are about that, like Make a List, Vacation, such a good song. This is really about the division of labor in the home, about how it ends up being like the woman's job and he's helping, he's babysitting, he's helping. If you just give him a list, he'll help you. You're like, well, no, that means it's all my responsibility and he's my second in command. That's weird. We are both equally responsible. I think, so I kind of have this joke in one of my shows about how becoming a mom was such... Like, before you become a mom, people are like, follow your dreams. And then you become a mom and they're like, follow your children. They are now your dreams. And you it feels like a big 2x4 to the face. It's like, whoop, woof. And you're like wondering what's happening. And how I've come to understand it is that essentially before becoming a mom, I could live as a man. I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted to, and I was invited to all spaces. But when you become a mom, you become a woman in society. They don't want you in spaces. You get the sideline for having children. People don't want you in their homes. You don't want to take too much space. And then the expectations become, there is a lot of work. And especially, at first when you're a mom, you literally are the default parent. If you choose to, firstly, you had that child in your body. And so your child needs you physically because you are its home. It needs to hear your heartbeat And just like that, there's like fourth trimester idea that like your child needs to be held by you and hearing your heartbeat for another 3 months. These are just ideas and how I like came to understand it. And you're breastfeeding. And so like there isn't much he can do for you, right? So then it starts this dynamic where you know your infant better than they do, and they don't want their dad at first. And so then you're like growing and changing, and much of a work of mothering is invisible, whether it's like remembering birthdays, throwing birthday parties, remembering what size of clothing is your children wearing, who bought those clothes, who put those clothes away, the old clothes, who organized that, who figured out where those clothes should go, who's figuring out a breast pump, who's cleaning that breast pump. And if you're not right there, you don't know how much work it is. So this is what creates this dynamic where your partner will think they believe, like, I will tell you that I have a husband. We talked about this beforehand. We were committed to this. We believe in the equality of men and women. My husband truly believes he is an equal. And even in a marriage like that, it takes a long time to develop understanding, because they're like, but you're home all day. How come the house isn't clean? How come there's not food on the table? What are you doing? And the house is destroyed, but you cleaned it up 10 times. There was vomit on you. There was vomit on the child. There was vomit on, you cleaned that up, but then there was more vomit. So, I mean, this is why like comments like, you should divorce your husband. I'm like, do you know how much I have invested? Do you know how we have fought for this? We have gained understanding. He's all in, and understands where he can't even begin to understand. There's a stat that children are 800 times worse with their mother than anyone else. Like, because, people will be like, oh, well, the husband will be home with the kids all day and they were well behaved. They like didn't bother him. That's not a mother's experience, right? So then the guy will be like, well, I don't know. I just did my work. You should just do your work too. And the mom's like, that is not the experience of moms. Like even an example like this year where my child doesn't like transitions. You need to like prepare them for what is to happen. And sometimes you can't do that, right? So I was like, okay, you're going to change it. Can you pick the kid up? And then you'll have to explain to them that there's a change of things and there's going to be a big meltdown, but like that's fine. You can handle it. I'm so excited. I'm not going to have to deal with this meltdown. He will. So I come home. I'm like, hey, did they have an experience about changing their plans and everything? And he's like, nope. No, the first thing that kid sees me, blah, blah, blah. There's a huge meltdown that was just waiting for their mother. So even just the invisible labor that a child waits to and saves up all their feelings for their mother, who is there. I mean, obviously I'm speaking in generalizations. There are many people whose father becomes the nurturer. And so it's different, but this is just my experience and like a general experience. But obviously I can't speak to every single, because there are fathers where it's totally different. But those are just some examples of this. That's why those songs are in therapy sessions, as they try because it's very difficult when you actually live in two different worlds. You think you see the same world, and the expectations of fatherhood has so changed, right? It used to be we judged men by whether he was there or not. A good dad was there. A good mother, has to have the best nutrition. Her children should never be on screens. She should be put together. Her home should be put together. She should be always emotionally sacrificing. There should be no self. She should be Mother Mary. Anyway, I could keep going. I could keep going. This is a health podcast. I just on my soapbox.
It's part of health, right? Our well-being, it's all compounding. And
this is also why women die early. And this is why they have bad health, is because they are doing 7 hours more every week of labor than their husbands. At Christmas time, they're putting 23 to 83 more hours into the family, in addition to the 7 that they're already doing, right? Like, so she's exhausted. When you tell them to sleep, it's like, but who will feed my child? My husband is here, but he doesn't even know what they eat. He'll forget to feed them, right? Like, because he just is like, oh, well, I'm sure they'll, this is why they die early. And then because we are so believed that we have to be self-sacrificing, she doesn't put money into her retirement. She doesn't work out. She doesn't have proper nutrition. She just eats what everybody else wants to eat, whether it's chicken nuggets, because she's exhausted. And there is no village. And she could fight with her children to do more, or her husband to do more, or she could just do it herself, right? And so, yeah, you're right. It is so entwined with health, because then she has to fight her doctor to be listened to, who will just tell her to sleep when that's not an option. When's she going to do that between working and going to school and having a child and being up in the night and blah, 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 and then fighting with her? So anyway, once again, don't get me started, Tio.
Too late for that.
Yeah.
Tell me about Christmas. You mentioned Christmas. You have a few songs. I already saw a few numbers on your Instagram feed, right? So you have this series, like 12 breakdowns of Christmas. And this episode is going to be released around Christmas time. So tell us all about it. What is the breakdown about? Like, what's the plan? What's the idea behind it all? And what are the songs that you've currently released and what are they all about?
Yeah,
Perfect.
12 Breakdowns of Christmas is really it's a song series about, kind of giving language to a mother's experience of the sheer workload it is to create magic and to create the harmony and, the matching budget. I will be the behind the scenes, juicy goss here, Tio. Tio or Teo? I'm lost my mind.
We are back to the names. I'm telling you, it's not an easy one. Teo. I accept Teo. Like Teo, I think is the most common one. It's fine.
Okay.
Both work.
All right. The 12 Breakdowns of Christmas are just giving language to the sheer amount of work it is for a woman to manage Christmas. Remembering everybody and giving a thoughtful gifts and wrapping it and decorating. And of course, moms do it also to themselves because they don't want to drop the ball on their love for their family, right? But the juicy gossip behind the scenes, Teo, is that I did not really grow up with Christmas. And also it's not that big of a deal in my house. It's a little bit of a deal, but not as much. But once again, like my songs aren't about my experience. They're about a collective experience. I ask people, what's the most annoying thing about Christmas? And, it's... one of them is just how much work it is, right? Of course. And like, there's one's about like, they're so exhausted. Why is there so many recitals to attend? Because like the recitals are bad and they are long and there are so many of them. And you don't even want to go, but you can't not go because you'll break your child's heart.
Exactly.
And so I have a song I'm really excited about a new song called My Husband Believes in Santa. And because all this like, they don't know what the gifts under the tree are. They don't know who created. So it's like a fun little play. And there's a version of The Magic of the Season Is Your Mom. There's a version of like Santa always brings me a vacuum. Like if he remembers, there's a song about like this is the other thing is that so there's the piece of how much work it is. But then at the moments when they wish to be recognized, which is to have a gift under the tree or to have something in their stocking if they do stockings, there's nothing for them. So there's this great injustice of like how much labor and love they put out and how there's nothing for them at the end. There's a thoughtless gift, something that was found at a gas station, something that, or there's nothing there at all, or it's a cup, meanwhile that person was like thinking about this gift all year, right? So I wanted to give language to that experience and to like keep it lighthearted and to know that they're at least not alone. Like it truly is an injustice that those things are happening. But, and then so what they do is that they just like, they buy the gifts for themselves, which is still wonderful, which is great, but it's not a solution, right? Like it's not a solution to just actually not feeling loved and appreciated, but at least they can be together. I can't change anything in their life, but I can give them a laugh.
You'll for sure give them a laugh. And I wonder how many shares are this series gonna get? Because I feel like it's a very subtle way, prepping towards Christmas Day, to give like very subtle hints to the spouses.
Yes, hopefully they just share. They're like, you better fill my stocking, share. Just being like, don't forget, last year was not a good time for us.
Exactly. What does your husband say about this all?
Well, when he listens to You're Such a Good Dad, all he hears is, wow, I am such a good dad. You know what? I am so blessed to have a really mature partner, a partner who is committed to the equality of men and women, and someone who has a sense of humor, and someone who knows exactly who he married and is just like, all right, you do you. There have been songs where he's been like, ooh, that's, like I have a song about vacations, all the things I do for vacation, and then he drives the car, right? Like, all these things. He's like, oh, that's a little bit close because that's exactly what happens. And I said, but that in that situation, like we have consulted and we have chosen that this is the right way because we both have careers, but he has a very demanding career that has very little time flexibility. Whereas I have a demanding career as well, but I can, if I'm like, you know what, I need a nap today, I can take a nap. So that means that like we can consult and be like, you can just drive the car. I will get us there, right? But a lot of people it's just assumed. It's not consulted on. Or they have the same kind of work with the same kind of demands and time commitment. But most of the time, my husband just is like, he lets it be. He lets me throw him under the bus. He lets everybody think that he is this guy. And, sometimes he meets people in person. He's like, not all her songs are written about me, I promise. Yeah. And you know what? He even stars in some of the songs, which is like so great. He was a musician when we met. Wildly, he works in healthcare. And so...
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Okay. He always says he's like living vicariously through him, through me. So we're really blessed. The other thing too is like when people are like, "Is your marriage okay?" And I say like, I could never write these songs if I was like inside that challenge.
100%.
Like we are 10 weeks. Like same thing with like we never really studied the female body, right? Because it's like I'm sure just as a creator, you see like you can't put stuff out that you're still processing because the mean comments would feel vulnerable. That's too much. And so it's like when you're out of it and you're like, that's not my marriage anymore, but it has been my marriage. Those are the conversations we've had to like work on this. You're coming from experience, but like none of the pain, right? So then you can just laugh at it.
Exactly. And now looking forward to next year, like where do you see your creative juices flowing towards? More towards like still marriage, motherhood, or you want to do more in women's health? What area do you feel like needs a lot more support, more awareness? Where do you want to go? Where do you want it to go?
Okay, so one of the things I will say is that like I don't generally know where my creative ideas are going to go. I'll be like, this is a great idea. And suddenly my like creativity is like, I'm going to write a soap opera with real soap. Nobody will like this, but I'm really into it. Right? I can never predict exactly where I'm going to go other than I just like tell the stories of women. One of the things I'm interested in doing is figuring out how to explore the financial piece because so many of the elderly are women who never had a retirement or, like there's a financial piece of our health and our well-being. I have not unlocked it, but I'm like, how could I talk about this? Like I had a boyfriend whose like father retired and he was like the mom didn't have access to. He's like, no, that's my retirement. But she raised the children. She was like the homemaker. So I was like, so she had to get a job in her like mid 50s to try and have a retirement. I'm like, and that would be happening, right? Like, but like I said, whenever I think I'm going one direction, my muse goes an entirely different direction and I have no control. But at the same time, it's a very intuitive thing. I'm like, I listen to the stories that women tell me and then I try and give them a song. But I'll probably do some more live shows and then I'll probably have some idea that's a complete left turn and then I'll go, like I didn't have a plan for the 12 breakdowns of Christmas until like early November. I was like, brilliant, great idea. Let's write 5 songs today. And then there's no song since. Like, it's like very unlinear or non-linear creative horse ride through a landscape that I have never anticipated. But that's
I think that's the beauty. That's the beauty also of the creative process, right? There is only so much that you should be controlling. Otherwise, there is no room for the fun and creativity.
That's the other thing is it doesn't end up being very good if you're like, I think I'm going to go. Oh, sometimes I can go, this is my intention. I get these ideas and then I can follow it. But when I like try and imagine 8 steps in the future and this is the most strategic, that's a different kind of my brain. But also it's not of service. Sometimes I'm thinking about what's strategic, but that's not like really I do best when I'm thinking what is the best song to be of service. Then my work does well because I'm not thinking about me. I'm thinking about others. And that's why this work has done well. In comparison to my career previously, I needed it to serve me and I no longer need my art to serve me so I can serve others.
Right. So next year or towards the end of the year or towards the end of next year, when we go to check out what you've created over the 2026 year, is going to be more of the feedback of where the collective needed more support with, right?
Exactly. Sometimes I think when I create thinking I know where people are, it's never quite right. But if I'm living it and staying in dialogue with my people, then I'm more in step with them. And so then we are creating together and I'm creating accurately what they're feeling and what they're doing. Or, who knows, I might become a travel influencer and just sample coffees in Italy. We'll find out.
I'm so excited to see what next year has in store for you. Really, because your work is beautiful. So far, what I've seen, and I'm going to be watching your work even more closer now. So really excited to see what you're going to create next year. We do have some questions that we ask all our guests. So the first question goes like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you talking about your body and everything that your body's been through?
9.5.
Second question. Tell us a moment when you realized that no one had prepared you for what being a woman and living in a woman's body would actually feel like.
That moment was when I had a 3-month-old and I realized I was truly living in a woman's body with so many expectations and very little support.
And I'm sure that's a very, very common experience that a lot of women feel. What's one thing, or maybe you have like a tool, a ritual, or a mindset that has helped you reconnect with your body on the tough days?
Really understanding fat phobia has really helped me make peace with my body. Because I think that we fear fat and we believe it is wrong. And yet bodies come in many sizes and bodies do things that don't necessarily make sense. And that has given me a lot of peace, especially coming from a child of the 90s who, diet culture was so strong. Ideology and philosophy and the research there has really helped me make peace.
What was your personal aha moment when you realized that your story could actually help other women feel seen?
After I wrote Such a Good Dad, I realized, if I just talk about what I really think and make people laugh, that will be the connection point. That's all a woman just wants to feel seen and heard. And if I do that, I'll be fine.
And could you think of a myth or a stigma that you most wish you could erase for good?
That you need to be a perfect mother. I wish we could release the myth of the perfect mother, that she is always sacrificing, that she only looks a specific way, that she's always perfect, because a perfect mom is kind of a psychotic mom, right? Our imperfections, we have to teach our children to be human, and that involves being imperfect. And so I wish that women didn't live under this tyranny of always thinking they have to be better.
Thank you for that. And was there maybe something that I didn't ask you and you really wanted to tell me?
This has been lovely. I've really enjoyed being here. There's nothing extra. This was just a delight.
Oh, I'm so glad. Really, it was a pleasure speaking to you. What is it, Farideh? Farideh.
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 I love it. We forgot each other's name halfway, or the pronunciation.
I know the spelling, so I know how to spell it. Pronunciation.
Exactly.
Oh, I suck at it. But yeah.
Going forward, we'll be able to text each other easily and effortlessly. We'll never forget each other's name.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you for all the work that you do, because as I said, you are contributing to women's health and wellness through the voice that you give women in pain, the women that feel dismissed. You help them feel seen and heard. So that's one step further for empowering someone to take a step forward towards maybe a diagnosis, towards empowering them to take health in their own hands. So thanks a lot for your work.
Thanks for having me.
This was Mirror Talks. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening to podcasts. If this episode spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Tap the likes, hearts, and stars, but most importantly, hit share. Send it to a friend, drop it in your group chat, or post it on your stories. Every share helps more women learn more about their bodies and live their lives free from the limits of shame. Check out our website, miracare.com, for tools, helpful articles, and free ebooks, and use the code LISTENTOMIRA for a special discount. Don't forget to follow us on social media for more.
See beyond the guesswork, track your hormones, and take control. Mira Ultra 4 is the most advanced at-home tracker, monitoring 4 key hormones in one test to reveal the full picture of your hormonal health, with 7 times more accuracy than other trackers. Irregular cycles, hormone imbalance, or struggling to conceive, Mira gives you answers to spark action. Feel sure, not stuck. Try Mira Ultra 4